people were associating me with that Duke the Jeweler situation because I went to the Boosie pool party and he happened to be there and he happened to be standing on me.
Boosie Badazz just sent shockwaves through the entire game, officially locking in a federal plea deal that, according to Street Whispers, might have Jay Prince and his infamous Dice crew standing dead in the Fed's crosshairs. This ain't just some random headline. This could be the start of something huge. See, if what people are saying is even halfway true, this case ain't about a gun charge anymore. It's way bigger. We're talking about the lid getting blown off a high-stakes dice racket that's been quietly preying on rappers for years. And here's the crazy part. The very same feds who've been circling around the tragic of Duke the Jeweler are retracing every single name tied to those dice nights. Nights where millions supposedly moved across the table and where luck never seemed to be on the side of outsiders. And now, with Boosie agreeing to work out a deal with the government, everybody's asking the same question. Is he just trying to save his own skin? Or is he about to hand over names that could knock down one of the most feared circles in hip-hop history? Because let's be real, if the whispers are right, this could put Jay Prince, the man accused for years of controlling Houston's check-in culture, under the kind of federal spotlight you can't just sweet-talk your way out of. People are already reading between the lines, wondering if Boosie just served mob ties up on a silver platter. The streets say this scheme, this whole operation, might be headed for its final act, all because of that dice game where Duke the Jeweler tragically lost his life. And that's the piece nobody can ignore. What started off looking like a friendly gambling night has turned into a full-blown federal storm. And if you've been around Houston long enough, you already know the whispers. Those friendly dice games that somehow always ended with the house on top, no matter who played. Dice games been part of Houston's underground for decades, but the ones tied to Jay Prince Jr., whole different beast. These ain't no small stakes games in a dusty basement. These are elite, high stakes events, invite only, where the buy-in alone could match somebody's yearly salary. The rules are strict, the money is crazy, and the infamous check-in culture makes sure the house always knows exactly who's in the room. But here's the twist. The streets swear there's always a catch to these exclusive nights. Mob ties allegedly got their own playbook. First, lure rappers and high rollers into the private room, drinks flowing, women around, and stacks of cash piled so high it feels like you're inside a movie scene. That's when the dice magic comes in. Charleston White even hinted at it, though only a handful of people really listen.
Texas know what the play is. If you rapping, you celebrity. If you like the strip club, you like to do this, you check in with them, they bringing them bad dice on you. Why you think they Duke the Jeweler, they really couldn't get him? That's why they had, come on, homie.
But those who did caught the message, the setup is run like a machine, smooth and cold-blooded. Word is, the Mob Ties crew keeps 3 dudes in rotation, one rolling, one holding, one swapping, and the dice ain't straight out the box. These cubes are allegedly prepped, shaved, and weighted just enough to bend the odds exactly where they want them. And guess what? The idea is real simple. The house always wins. Reports say Jay Prince Jr. walks away with a slick 30% cut every single time, while the losers stumble out the room lighter, embarrassed and too scared to call it out. But the night Duke the Jeweler stepped in, things didn't play out like usual. He wasn't some rookie gambler who didn't know the streets. Duke came with money, experience, and confidence. Duke the Jeweler had just slid out from a Boosie concert, iced out in millions worth of custom jewelry, moving with the kind of confidence only money and reputation can buy. But what nobody saw coming was how fast that confidence would flip the whole room upside down. Somehow, nobody knows if it was chance or a mistake. Duke gets his hands on dice that weren't meant for him. And then, boom, he starts heating up. First stacking a few racks, then tens of thousands, until he's up nearly $100,000 in a game designed for outsiders to lose every time. You can literally see it in the leaked footage. The energy shifts, smiles vanish, whispers start spreading, and that friendly vibe turns stiff and cold. Because in a rigged system, winning that much ain't luck, it's disruption. And disruption in the wrong circle comes with consequences. Minutes later, Duke walks out to his car, no heavy security, no entourage, just him, and that's when it happens. Gunshots cut through the night. Chaos breaks loose, and before anybody can even process what went down, Duke is gone. Now here's where it gets chilling. His jewelry, still on him. Cash, untouched. Even his Louis Vuitton bag, stuffed with over $1 million in custom pieces, was left exactly where it was, which makes one thing crystal clear. This wasn't about robbery. This was about control, about sending a message. Duke broke the system's control that night, and he paid the price with his life. And don't forget, Duke wasn't just some random player at the table. This was a respected Chicago jeweler with a client list most rappers would kill to have. His custom pieces were worth millions, his craftsmanship unmatched, and his presence was big enough to make him a fixture at every major hip-hop event. So when Boosie invited him to Houston, Duke thought it was all business. Networking, building, showing off his work. That Louis Vuitton bag, it ended up inside Boosie's house. Now, his explanation was simple. He claimed Duke asked him to hold it during the dice game, and after the tragic shooting, it just stayed in his possession. But the streets ain't buying that as the full story, and neither are the feds. See, Duke's phone went dark right after pinging near Boosie's recording studio, and federal investigators are saying they've got surveillance footage, text messages, and even witnesses that put Boosie circle dead center in Duke's final hours. That flips the whole situation from suspicious to downright explosive, and it gets even heavier. The feds have reportedly zeroed in on Boosie's own nephew as the possible trigger man. Instead of folding this into Boosie's other legal troubles, they carved Duke's case out into its own standalone federal investigation, which means it's getting undivided attention from prosecutors. No distractions, no overlap, just laser focus on what went down that night. That's why that Louis Vuitton bag isn't just some accessory. It might be the exact detail that dragged Boosie's name deeper into federal files. For the streets, this looks real dangerous for Boosie. His name's tied to a chain of events that keep circling back to the same night, and now the talk is that his plea deal might not be about just that 2023 gun charge anymore. People are whispering this could be a way to negotiate around the Duke case, where federal prosecutors are digging hard and refusing to lump it in with his other battles. And that's the part that's shaking the industry right now. If the feds are running this case solo, it means they see Duke's situation as way bigger than a random street incident. It's personal, calculated, and possibly tied to a pattern that goes much deeper than one dice game gone wrong. They split Duke's case off on purpose, and that's a classic Fed pressure move. When investigators isolate a case like this, it ain't by accident. It's strategy. It lets them keep the heat laser focused while holding leverage in their back pocket. They can dangle a little mercy on one case if you feed them answers on another. And let's be real, the Duke situation is stacked with red flags for Boosie's camp. First off, Duke's phone, the last digital breadcrumb of his life, pinged near Boosie's recording studio right before it suddenly went dark. That's not a detail federal agents are overlooking. That's the type of evidence they build entire timelines around. Then comes the discovery of physical evidence in Duke's rental car. Items reportedly linking back to people in Boosie's inner circle. Add in multiple witness statements, and suddenly you can see why investigators are circling tighter and tighter around this camp. And here's the part Boosie can't control. Rumors that some of his very own people are already whispering to the feds. That's how these cases always crack. The moment one person folds, it snowballs. Stories start shifting, timelines get messy, and the easiest way out for anybody caught in the storm is to hand over the bigger names. So picture Boosie sitting there with a federal gun case hanging over his head, Duke's death being probed as its own separate investigation, and the possibility of crew members flipping. Suddenly cutting a deal doesn't look like weakness, it looks like survival. And survival means giving the feds something they can't get on their own, and that's where things get real dangerous. Because in this case, there's only two major names that could make the feds lean back: J. Prince Jr. or his father, J. Prince himself. The same two names already tied to some of the most infamous, high-profile dice games in Houston's history. One watch ended in tragedy. Duke the jeweler gone just hours after leaving a dice game. Another night, Takeoff lost his life right outside a different one. Different nights, different circumstances, but the same chilling pattern. Big money, big names, and gunfire before sunrise. And now the industry can't stay quiet. Whack 100 flat out accused J. Prince Jr. of running setups that lure high-profile rappers into games they can't possibly win. unless the house decides to let them walk away. Charleston White doubled down too, calling these dice nights straight-up traps, rigged with loaded dice, tight control, and a silent rule where one wrong win could mark you as a target before you even get a chance to pocket your cash. All of this paints a picture of an ecosystem where trust is nothing but smoke and mirrors, and real power plays are happening in the shadows. And here's the part that's got everybody nervous. If Boosie really starts talking, naming names from the inside, the whole check-in culture that's ruled Houston for years could collapse overnight. Imagine the domino effect if the feds get confirmation that the mob ties system isn't just myth, but an organized hustle, backed by intimidation and bloodshed. And once you start pulling that thread, you can't ignore how deep it runs, because it ain't just the streets reacting anymore. Word is, even artists with no ties to the beef are quietly backing out of Houston appearances. Big names skipping shows, ducking appearances, and refusing to move where mob ties might have influence. It's already happening. On paper, J. Prince Sr. swears there's no such thing as a check-in rule. But insiders paint a very different picture, saying the pressure is real, just more polished now, enforced through J. Prince Jr.'s crew instead of the old school street tactics. And after 2 high-profile deaths tied to dice games, even the boldest names in hip-hop are starting to rethink if the Houston scene is really worth the gamble. And here's the thing. The fear isn't just about catching stray bullets. It's about getting tangled up in the politics. Because once you're inside that circle, it stops being about how much money you walk away with. It's about who you're standing next to when the night takes a turn. Hip-hop vets have been quietly warning the new generation, stay out of the Houston dice scene. The message is clear. When the game is bigger than dice, survival depends on staying out altogether. Take Finesse 2 Times as a prime example. He went from being aligned with J. Prince Jr., smiling in pictures and moving with the camp, to suddenly airing out bad blood in public. He claimed he got stiffed financially, calling out shady business moves, and even hinted at being disrespected behind the scenes. That alone showed cracks in the Prince empire. But then came the rumors, whispers about a baby mama scandal that made the situation even messier and exposed deeper fractures in their relationship. What used to look like solid unity in mob ties now looks shaky, with public fallouts and private scandals stacking up one after another. True or not, the drama only poured gas on the fire, making the narrative louder that J. Prince Jr. is losing allies faster than he can replace them. And it's not just the rappers who are pulling back. The labels are watching closely too. With so much attention locked on these dice game controversies and the violent chaos tied to them, execs are quietly warning their artists to steer clear of anything mob ties related. They know the truth. One bad headline can sink a whole rollout. No brand wants to be connected to a situation that's one Instagram live away from being splashed across the news as a crime scene. That's the nightmare every label is trying to avoid, which is exactly why, if Boosie really does start naming names, it won't just rattle Houston, it could send aftershocks through the entire rap game. Nobody's career is safe if the feds get a clear map of who's been moving where. But let's slow it down and zero in on mob ties. Up until now, most of the conversation around them has lived in the streets or in the court of public opinion. Rumors, whispers, and speculation. But behind the curtain, the feds are allegedly working on a much bigger play. And this ain't just about dice games anymore. According to whispers, the investigation could connect directly to Houston's own police department. Recent federal sweeps in the city have already dismantled entire drug rings and violent street gangs, and some of the same names have reportedly crossed paths with mob ties figures. That's the part that has people nervous, because if those threads line up, mob ties might not just be dealing with internet rumors, they could be staring down a full-blown federal takedown. With agencies like the FBI, DEA, ATF, and even ICE all working hand in hand with HPD, the scale of this is no joke. And here's the kicker. These operations weren't just about scooping up low-level players. Nah, these sweeps were designed to dismantle entire networks from top to bottom, from the shooters on the block all the way to the people quietly moving the money behind the scenes. That's the exact same blueprint they could roll out if mob ties becomes the next target. And the whispers in Houston are getting louder. Word is there are already sealed warrants connected to the crew. The type of paperwork that can quietly flip into full-blown arrests overnight. with HPD's Criminal Intelligence Division linking up directly with federal task forces. Every handshake, every backroom favor, every little off-the-record move inside that circle is under the microscope right now. But here's the real bombshell. It might only take one piece of hard evidence to blow the whole case open. Imagine a leaked video from one of those dice nights showing who was in the room, who was handling the cash, or who gave the green light for certain plays. That wouldn't just be messy gossip anymore. That would be case-closing material the feds could walk into court with tomorrow. And that's exactly where Boosie's situation gets dangerous. If he really is cooperating, then yeah, the feds might promise him protection in exchange for intel. But out here in the streets, that kind of protection can paint a target on your back faster than anything. Once people start believing you're feeding the other side, your name stops being mentioned in whispers and starts popping up in threats. So tell me, how do you think this plays out? Is Boosie about to save himself by putting mob ties in the hot seat, or is he playing with fire that could burn him worse than the charges ever could? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to see what's really bubbling in our hood next.